I want to welcome or thank everybody for joining us to be here today for this conversation. We spent a lot of time in the tech industry talking about resilience, about high availability, uptime, disaster recovery, but we don't talk about our own uptime, our own disaster recovery. And if you work in security, infrastructure, DevOps, there's often this silent expectation that you're the one holding the fort together. That when the system breaks, you don't. That you're calm, composed, and capable no matter how many fires are burning. But here's the truth that's harder to say out loud. Even the strongest people get tired. Even the strongest people get stuck. Even the most capable people question their worth. And that's not weakness, that's just being human. I've been in the industry for a long time. I've worked with incredible people on high-performing teams in companies that are leading the world in cybersecurity. I've also seen and felt the mental toll that comes with it. There were nights I couldn't sleep because my mind was stuck in an incident response mode. There were times I felt like I was drowning in expectation while still trying to appear calm and button down on a Zoom call. There were moments I started to believe that exhaustion, the pressure, the emotional flatline, maybe that was just the cost of doing this kind of work. I obviously prepared a little bit of notes this time. Usually I wing it, but I wanted to do a really good job of this. And eventually I had to make a decision that wasn't easy, but necessary. I stepped away from a role at one of the top companies in security, not because I couldn't do the job, but because I couldn't ignore the cost anymore. And stepping away, that's when the real recovery started. Mental health in tech isn't just a nice-to-have conversation anymore. It's not an HR checkbox. It's not a hashtag Wellness Wednesday post. It's something we have to talk about openly, honestly, and without shame. Because every alert behind every code commit and every project deadline, there's a person, a full, complicated, brilliant human navigating life. And it's not enough to tell people to take care of themselves while still glorifying overwork, toxic positivity, and the fear of failure. We need to do better together. So today we're doing something that's both simple and radical. We're talking. We brought together a panel of IT professionals who have lived through these experiences from burnout and imposter syndrome to leadership challenges, sleep disruption, addiction, fear of job loss, and more. This panel isn't about solutions in a box, it's about stories, reflections, and a space where it's okay to not be okay. So just to give you guys a little bit of an agenda of what we're going to do here today, we are going to introduce each panelist. As an introduction, I will be showing their bio and the picture on the screen, and they have 1 minute to go over why they wanted to be part of this mental health panel. And then for each section, we are going to put up the list of what we're talking about. And after that section, we're going to pause quickly for some questions. Michelle.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Balderson. I am currently unemployed in the industry, and it's actually one of my biggest fears is being unemployed in this industry. Why do I want to be a part of the mental health panelists is that I've been in the industry for 30 years. I've always been that person who is the strongest person in the room, the person who has that A-type personality, that person who is talking to the executive, that person who is taking a technical solution and describing it to people in very non-technical terms, and that takes an extraordinary amount of brain power. In my personal life, and we've got to separate the professional life from the personal life, is in my personal life I have 3 boys, and less than 2 years ago my third son, my youngest son, and 18 years old, died in a motorcycle accident, and it's been the most difficult experience of my life. That being said is that my eldest has been suicidal since he was 11 years old. He's 23 years now, and we're still not through that period of time. And so for me, my own mental health is at stake from the perspective of I've been going through a whole lot. I've gone through a lot in the last 2 years than most of us will ever experience in our lives. And mental health becoming critical in the respect that I'm in that midlife crisis mode at this particular point in time. And the best thing I can do is just pick myself up, dust myself off, get in front of people, and talk about my own mental health challenges and recognize that I'm probably the most mental unstable person in the room, but that doesn't make me not an asset to a company that I could work for.
Well said.
Thank
Rick?
you, Michelle. Thanks, Darren. Rick Byrne, live here in Edmonton, Alberta. I lead up a tremendous sales engineering group for Veeam Canada. We do data protection. Sometimes that can get stressful, but that's not why I'm here today. This is nothing to do with what I do as a career. What really relates to me is I have what I call, and I don't call it suffering, I call it having the benefit of having highly functional anxiety. It means there's a voice in my head constantly driving me to try to do a little bit more, try to be a little bit more perfect. But the hardest thing about that and understanding, it took me a lifetime to get there, was that it doesn't actually define me. It drives me. And I want to share that with individuals, and even to the point I have a book started about seems fine. It's that whole concept of just because somebody seems fine on the outside doesn't mean they are. But it's taking those challenges that you have, and we all have voices in our head. I guarantee you, everybody here does. It's what you do with that voice and how you let it either drive you or define you. Pick what you want. So that's what I want to share today, is some of those aspects and some of the things I've dealt with. But one of my biggest successes was having my son here with me. And one of the biggest successes of my lifetime is that individual right there, and I'll pass it off to Josh Byrne.
Thank you, Dad. Well, I'm a little unique when it comes
Isn't
to
that
this.
unique?
I'm a little unique when it comes to especially B-sides in general, because I'm an esports and content creator. So I'm a lot online, and a lot of the struggles that I have faced aren't only unique to esports and content creation, whether you're dealing with stress, burnout, anxiety, self-doubt, whatever it may be. Even right now, right, I got a little bit of anxiety. It's my first time speaking here, and it's unique to all industries or just in life in general. So being able to speak about the things that I've learned, the struggles that I've been through, and being able to hear other people's struggles and what they've been through and how they've learned is a big part of why I'm here. And yeah, I'm excited. And Rita?
Rita?
Over to me. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the panel. Really appreciate that. This is a really important topic, and I think we all experience in our careers different aspects and challenges. And so for me, I've spent over 30 years in technology. I keep telling everyone I started when I was 2, because I'm never older than 35. That's the way it's always going to be. At some point, it's going to surpass. We'll figure that out later. But I think a big portion of it is I've spent a significant amount of time really digging into my values recently and spending a lot of work really identifying what that is, what that looks like, and how I show up. Digging in from a resilience perspective, I've always thought throughout my career, and being in IT has its own challenges, but you just plow through it. You just keep going. It'll get better, it'll get easier. And what I've found is it really is a very delicate balance between your physical, your mental, your emotional state. And so being really thoughtful about how you want to show up, what those values are, and really spending the time to do that work is really important. So just wanted to spend a bit of time with this group, be able to both hear your stories and your questions, and being able to share a little bit of my experience.
Thank you. So section 1 is all about identity, judgment, and culture, fear of judgment and other people's opinions, imposter syndrome, and the mental health stigma in technology. So I'm going to start off with a question for Rita. How do you balance being yourself with the pressure to show up a certain way at work or online?
That we're starting off with a really easy question, I see. I think the biggest challenge is really knowing who you are. So I talked a little bit about values, really understanding what those values are. And even though it kind of earlier on in my career, I couldn't identify what those values were, but they were still really core to the way that I showed up. So for me, three as an example of the ones that are critical is integrity, authenticity, and impact. And so each one of those would show up in different ways, but it wasn't something that I could really mask. It was something that I wanted to make sure that the decisions that were being made were being done accordingly from a perspective of making sure that they are the right decisions and the approach is the ideal way to be able to manage it overall. So the honesty, showing up how you truly are, and it's about walking the talk. It's making sure that people are seeing you the way that what you are telling them, you're actually delivering over and over again, because that's critical. That's part of your brand. That's part of how you show up. That's how you build credibility. And as far as impact, that continues to be a really critical component of how I show up. I want to make sure that when I enter and I'm leaving better than when I entered, I should put it that way. And my dad actually taught me that right at the very beginning of my career. He said, always remember to make sure that whatever impact that you're making is going to be not just the projects that you do or the check off all of the different tasks that you've done, but it's also about the people. How have you impacted the people in a positive way that they've been able to attain something out of that experience engaging with you. So impact has been really core to how I show up as well.
I like how you defined it comes down to values, and I think it's not so easy to define your values when somebody asks you directly. It takes some time to figure out, and perhaps you have to be in those certain situations to try to figure out exactly how you would handle that, what your values are. So I really like that. Rick, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it goes back to what Rita was saying, values. But one thing I really looked at as well is, I matured. That's what we'll call it, mature, right? It's not aged, it's matured. There used to be the work Rick and then the personal Rick. But you need that tremendous balance within your life. There isn't a work Rick, there isn't the personal Rick, there's Rick. And that's what I had to be comfortable in, is being who I can be no matter where I am, whether it's in a business meeting, whether it's in a friendship. That's the thing I carve out. And when it comes down to those values, the big thing I always look at is the humble, hungry, smart. There's a book about it, and Derran might even have it up here. But the whole concept is humble, literally, truly be humble. Ego is the enemy, and I never try to take an ego into a conversation. It's always trying to look at the different perspective that somebody else may be facing. The hungry is being to go after achievements. It doesn't matter if I'm shoveling poop or trying to win the biggest deal ever. I'm trying to be successful with that and get that achievement. The achievement to me means something. It means I'm accomplishing something. I'm proving that impact or value. And the smart has nothing to do with book smarts. That's definitely an equation, but it's the emotional intelligence. But one of the biggest things is self-awareness. Are you self-aware? And that's one thing I always try to look at. Do I understand where I'm coming from, whether I'm angry, whether I'm happy, whether I'm content, doesn't matter. Why do I feel that way? And why do I act sometimes in those fashions?
I would just like to know, Derran, how Rick gauges how successful he's been picking up poop, but that's just my question for him.
That would be that. It's a great question. I'm going to ask this to Michelle. How has the pressure to maintain strong online personal brand impacted your mental health?
I know I'm reading my notes as we're going along, and the strong online brand impacting mental health for me is that I was very similar to Rick in the respect that I had the Michelle that showed up at work and the Michelle that showed up at home, and they're very two different people. And then you have the online stuff, and I absolutely detest social media. I detest LinkedIn. I think they're tools that are past the usefulness in our industries today. And from that, my representation of myself on Facebook is very different than my representation of myself on LinkedIn. And when you get to that point, it's how am I representing the whole Michelle to everybody? And I get terrified from the perspective of showing the whole Michelle. That goes down to my journey. At 9 years old, I knew that I was transgendered. And I buried my feelings until I was in my mid-40s. I thought being a man meant 2.3 kids, white picket fence, and that's exactly what I did. And I learned to hide things, but I was a salesperson, and from a salesperson perspective, trust, honesty, and integrity is what every salesperson needs to bring to the table. Yet I was hiding my personality. I was hiding the person that I was. You may ask another question later on that's in my notes, but from that perspective is I hid the person that I am from my manager at Fortinet. I started with Fortinet in 2004. I knew that my marriage was crumbling, and I knew that I needed to go through transition. I didn't show it to him. Why? Because I sat there in meetings with him, and he told me, women do not hire women for sales jobs. And I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, well, I'm a woman, but you don't know that yet. And so there was this feeling of I'm breaking trust with him. At the same time, I'm absolutely terrified to talk to him about it because he kept on telling me that women are going to be inconsistent, women are going to have periods, women are going to have babies, and they will be inconsistent in work. And with that, I was just like flabbergasted by what he was saying. And what it got me leading towards, and I'm hoping that you guys can do this in your life, please don't see gender, right? See capability within people, see the expertise and the knowledge that people have. We're all human beings. It is nothing to do with gender and the ability of being able to deliver a job.
Well said. Josh, I'm curious on your opinion on this because you're a different generation than myself. You also are into esports. You're also into personal branding. So I imagine the pressures and stresses that come along with that are very different from your side.
Oh, most definitely. And I think a lot of the younger generation that are here can understand the impacts of social media, right, on your mental health, especially when it comes to other people's opinions. Personally, when I first started out in content creation, I was always worried about, I need every single person to like me, right? I can't, if I get a bad comment, if I have a hater, right? Like that's the end of the world for me. I'm gonna lose sleep over it. My energy is gonna start to drain. So over the years, it's kind of through experience, but you learn that other people's opinions shouldn't affect how you treat yourself or right what you think about yourself at the end of the day. So it's a really big thing, and yeah, I'm kind of losing.
No, I think that's I when you said the first part there, I was actually feeling like at a young age being online and it's all about content creation and you get in that negative comment and it's affecting your sleep at such an early age.
It was MySpace, though, right? Sorry.
Wow. You know what? This Derran Rick shtick, it goes on all day long. Yeah, so I can't imagine at your age sitting there going to bed worrying about that person who's saying this and that about you. Like that must have been hard.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like I would lose at least 20 hours of sleep a week just because of the things that people would say to me. Like imagine the worst thing you can possibly think of that you could say to somebody that has been said to me. And that's said every day because I've had, each month I get tens of millions of views across Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, Facebook. And it's from different generations, right? It could be from someone who's 10 years old to somebody who's 50 years old. And that's something I got to remember at the end of the day, too. It's just somebody behind a screen that their opinion doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter, right? Even if it's a good opinion, right? I should stay true to my own values, what I respect, what I enjoy. And that's something that I have learned, and it's honestly made me a lot happier. My content has done better, and I've enjoyed it a lot more. And I'm able to sleep perfectly at night now. So that's a,
I think that's a tough thing to learn at a young age, but you obviously did it. How long did it take you to get to that point where I don't care anymore?
in recent years, honestly. So I kind of started the content side of things when I was 15 years old, and I'm currently 24 now. So I would say probably around like 22 years of age. So a couple of years ago.
Yeah, those are pretty formidable years too, to being losing sleep over what people, and we didn't grow up, most of us didn't grow up in a, when you're 18, 19, 20, and anything you do can be put on social media and rubbed in your face. So yeah, great answer. It almost kicks off to the next topic, which is all about imposter syndrome. It's pretty prevalent in our industry today. Can you share a time when the fear of being judged kept you from speaking up in life or at work? And we're going to start with Michelle.
Okay, perfect. Well, I've already given you part of my answer, and I'm going to throw away my notes, okay? Because I'm going to have some fun with it. I talked about bringing it up to my boss from the perspective of being transgendered. And it was literally like 5 or 6 years before I even could have a conversation with him about it. And I chose to talk to the HR department first and foremost. And the HR department went, oh, okay, well, we haven't had to deal with this before at Fortinet. And so they went to our CEO and our CTO, and their reaction calmed me down completely. They basically went, oh, we've seen it before, don't worry about it, it's all good. Right? She's an exceptional employee. Let's just keep going. We'll support her through transition. And then it took me probably another year from there, working with HR, to have that conversation with the manager that told me that females couldn't perform. And then I basically put goals in front of me, which is, you're telling me I can't perform? Well, I'm going to show you that I can perform. Which then caused other mental health problems because I was working 12 to 18-hour days trying to show that I can perform. But the person that I am didn't change. My gender changed, but the person that I am didn't. I've always been a woman in my mind. And the reality of it is that fear that we all have to be able to bring up those tough conversations, it's worse than the actual reality of those conversations. And so I suggest to you guys that if any of you have fears from the perspective of bringing up that tough conversation, find ways to motivate yourself to do it. I wish I had done it sooner, because my mental health as a woman is 100 times better than as a man.
Rita, what's your take on imposter syndrome? Have you experienced this?
I think we all experience it in different capacities, different times in our lives. I think for me, I'm going to bring the word that I'm pretty sure most people are tired of, but the psychological safety is really important in any organization, in teams, in any environment, and that tends to be kind of the gauge, I think, where most people are feeling that can I show up as myself? Do I have the safety to be able to do that? And if you don't, it starts to kind of come up in different ways. So as an example for me, I was in a certain situation where there wasn't really psychological safety and there was competitiveness, and it was actually encouraged for people to compete between themselves amongst the various different teams. And what I started to get into that, and I started because it was part of the culture, and I started to realize that at some point I needed to step back, because there was a bit of a situation where I said, I'm actually contributing to this. So having that self-awareness, which we talked a little bit about earlier, was really critical. So when I stepped back and I just became an observer of what was happening, that really gave me the opportunity to look at it from a different perspective. And so the next step was really talking to the leader to be able to even see is that something that they recognize? Because they might, excuse me, that might not be something that they either encourage or conscious of. So having that conversation, not me bringing it up, but just bringing it up in the context of, how do you think the team is doing? Do you see any rub points? Is there anything that maybe we need to think about that might be a little bit different, and getting their perspective? And then bringing examples into situations of, if we did things maybe this way, is there an opportunity? Do you foresee the team working more cohesively and better? So I think it's multifaceted. One is, what do you contribute? What do you bring to the conversation? The second one is a leader even aware that some of those symptoms are there just because they've potentially have operated in cultures that have evolved and they're at that point in their career as well? And really being intentional and thoughtful. And then the third part is, does that align to your values? Because you do have to sit back and really think about, is that the type of environment I want to be part of? And if so, that's great. The other part of it, though, is, can you influence it to be a better environment? So not only is it, oh, I'm just going to walk away, is there potential that you have to influence it to be better as you're evolving in that group as well?
Well said. And taking that next step, is there, with trying to make things better, is there a way that we can normalize talking about mental health? Rick, I'll start with you.
Let me ask you this, Derran. I'm going to turn the tables on you now.
Uh-oh.
So just to take this into context, if somebody is training for a marathon or going to the dentist to get their teeth checked on and taking care of their physical health, is there anything wrong with that?
Nothing at all.
So why shouldn't we be exercising our mental health as well?
Well said.
That is the biggest thing I kind of look at. There's no reason for it ever to be looked at as bad. Because if you don't work on it, you can't fix it. So you need to work on it. It means you need to understand it. It means you need to talk about it. And repetition makes it better.
We still get this stigma is that if people bring up mental health, they're weak or they're unfit. And I think that's part of the problem where that gets brought up a lot.
I think that's where you got to say they're intelligent, right? They are self-aware and they know they need assistance. It doesn't mean they need to go to a doctor for it, but some people learn in different ways, whether that's self-help books, podcast, venting, frustration. It doesn't matter as long as they're exercising it and know what they need.
Well said. Michelle, how about you? How do you think we can start to normalize that conversation?
That's a good question. I wanted to make sure that I pointed out that I segued to humor because of the fact that they're having that conversation across me. So for me to be able to control my own mental health, I just stepped away and segmented and went to humor so that the audience could have some fun with it as well. And Murray, I did see your hand up, so we will get to questions shortly. I'm not even sure how to answer the question. I've been in a sales career for a long time, and in sales organizations, they pit salespeople against each other to be able to increase performance. And so, and that pitting of the salespeople against each other is just simply ingrained cultures in those types of organizations. If you start to become aware of those sort of things, it's where Rita was going, is having conversations of saying, is there a way for us to be able to talk about the culture and being able to evolve and change the culture of the organization? I think is critically important, is being able to open that dialogue. It may not be your direct line manager. In my circumstance, it wasn't my direct line manager, it was HR where I started having those conversations because of the fact that you're creating an environment that is completely unhealthy. And the other side of the equation is us as employees, we have choices. And what I would suggest, and I'm going to be doing this in my interviewing process, let me talk to other employees. Why don't you guys tell me first what the culture of your organization is, and then I'm going to go and compare it to the employees that I'm talking to be able to understand the culture of the organization. And if I hear toxicity in the organization, I won't take the job. Now, I'm at an age where I'm like 57 going on 58. I can choose to not take that job. But if you're younger, you may end up wanting to take that job. But think about it before you do, because if you're going to go into a toxic organization, understand where you are and understand how you can manage your own mental health in a toxic organization.
Well, then, well said. To me, I always look at it as, I love what Rick said, and I always think it the same way, is that if I break my leg, I break a foot, I go to a doctor. If I have mental health issues, why would I not go and see a doctor? It's my head's up here, it's part of my body. And the other part I always think of is that the best way to start that is we want to talk about it, right? If everybody's talking about it more and more, then it becomes more normalized within the environment. I personally have tried to bring it up on our own team, and I always start with myself. Some of the challenges I've had. So I try to make people feel more comfortable to communicate and talk more about it. So anyway, that's section one. And Rick did did mention that we're at the question section, but we did poll for your value a number of books that we found that related to this section that you may find interesting to help you. Now, do we have any questions? I think Michelle said Murray in the back. Murray, do you have a question?
On this subject, I think from personal experience that so long as people are at the risk of losing their health benefits or life insurance due to something that may or may not have happened in their mental health state, there's not going to be a lot of conversation about this regardless of how much we do let's talk or talk it within the workplace. And then further to that, if the environment is such that if you did talk about it and it was weaponized against you in the workplace, is also going to be a problem that needs to be addressed before we can really move forward on this subject.
Yeah, no, all valid. I mean,
Totally fair points.
I've had my personal experiences with having mental health and being part of an organization, and I've seen the dark side of it and how it can be weaponized, and I've seen how, let's be honest, most HR, I'm glad your HR department was there, and it helped you, right? But most times HR departments are there to protect the company. They're not necessarily there to really protect the employees. So I think very valid point that you made.
Over a few years after this, I was having a mental health breakdown at work, and I went to HR, and the opposite occurred in the same company where it was weaponized against me. I'm going to ask a question of the audience. How many of you guys run incident teams or have been involved in incident responses? Okay. I think it's critically important today that we talk about the mental health of the individuals when an incident occurs. How many of you had impacts of mental health during an incident?
And that comes back to that unfair expectations that you're having some big event happens, and now from the business side, we need you to work, 15, 16 hours a day. We need to get back up and running. How about the worst scenario? How about when you have called bad day, and there's some kind of breach of something, and you see this team working 18-hour days over and over, they're burnt out and all that, and you see the business not address the root causes that started, and guess what? It happens again. I've seen now 2 or 3 instances of this in the last 2 or 3 years, and it's pretty, like, I feel, Rick and myself, we dropped off lunch to a team at one point that was in the middle of a major incident, and they were on like week 4, and by week 6, they were still on that incident, and then we thought they were in a better place, and 4 months later, the exact same thing happened again, and it's because management wasn't making that decision. They weren't moving forward. They weren't changing, and they were really subjecting those poor employees to the same situation over and over.
One of the other things that I've seen in my career over and over again is during an incident, the employees that designed and built the security systems get pushed aside by consultants, and the consultants don't take in consideration the impact to the employee. That, hey, look, they have their pride and their life and their joy and of what they've been doing in work built into this. So as we get to the point of having you guys ask questions, I'd love for any of you guys to talk about, if you can, when your mental health was impacted in an incident and what you might propose as solutions to the problem, because it's a definitive problem. I come from the vendor space. Many of us come from the vendor space, but the reality of it is that for the people that are in the field operating, your mental health challenges are different than my mental health challenges, and we have to remember that. And in that, incident response mental health is probably the most important thing to this audience, in my mind.
I had a quick thing to that.
Okay.
Was that a no or a yes? I'm just checking.
I want to keep moving on. I don't want to get too far behind.
The only thing I will throw out, during those times, you take that as a life lesson, as a best practice. If an organization does that to you, keep improving your skills, set your values. That can be a positive outcome as well. It's not just the problem you faced at that point in time, but now you know this company, organization may not fit your needs. And you're starting to learn what you need for your mental health. So keep those things in check as you go through life and experiences, because that's who builds what we are. We are in full control of our mental health.
We all make choices. Yeah. Okay, segment 2, pace, pressure, performance. How has the constant pressure, alerts, deadlines, incidents impacted your life outside of work? And we'll start with Rita.
Thank you. Definitely has had an impact on my family. Really looking at the amount of time and the amount of effort that really is taken. I've got a very supportive husband, so that has really helped me in my life to manage it. Not everybody has that fortune. He also was in IT, so he understood some of the challenges. But it really is around when you're not working, what are you doing? What are you spending your time on? What's that downtime look like as well? Because if you're on all the time, then that causes you're going to have some other issues to address. But it's really around segregating as much as you can. What can I do for myself? How does my physical being, mental stimulation? I'm all about that. I want the more challenges that there are, the more I'm engaged and want to be able to move things forward. And those situations actually inspire me to do better. But it's also, you need to have the appropriate support system to be able to make sure that you're managing that and that you do have that balance. So if you are spending the time and the effort, what are you doing for yourself that is outside of the work, and being able to be really thoughtful and intentional with that?
I like it. Josh, what about you? Because you're from a very different work environment than we are. Where does this fit for you?
Yeah, when it comes to deadlines and just setting aside certain things, I mean, for me personally, it's like, okay, I could stream from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., but then you have practice. I know practicing in esports, that's weird, right? So you practice from 3 to 6, and then maybe your friends want to play games with you, or you have meetings, or you have to talk to organizations, and that's a lot because you have sponsorships you have to deal with and keep. And this really affected my relationship with my family, friends, right? You don't really have a lot of time to, see your friends and family. And personally, what I found is you really, like Rita said, you need to set time for yourself, whether that be reading a book, hanging out with family, friends, could be watching a movie, could be learning something new that you enjoy that doesn't have to do with work. And personally, that has kept my mental health, and my energy levels at a good pace. And it helps me fall asleep easier. When I wake up, I don't feel drained because I'm missing these deadlines, or if I'm not always working, always performing, then yeah.
Thank you. Do you, new question here, I'm going to give this to Rick first. Do you feel like being always available is still celebrated, or are people starting to value balance more?
Yeah, balance is that whole fun thing we all try to achieve in life and everything we do.
Mythical legend.
Mythical legend? Was that a thing?
I always say
Is that a joke I don't get?
I always say work-life balance to me is like a myth. It's like it fluctuates up, down, back and forth.
Okay. Yeah, and it really boils down into what does always on mean to you as the individual. You'll probably get from every question that I get asked, it always comes down to, what does Rick think about that? What do you think about that? Because honestly, it really means, what does that mean to you? Some of us take jobs where we do have to be always on, but you accept that challenge or you don't accept that challenge, and you make a choice whether you want to be that. And some people need that in their lives to actually provide their mental health. Let's be honest, not everybody wants a slow-paced job. Not everybody wants work-life balance. They actually want balance. So if you're doing the thing you love to do, that's balance right there. There's no always on because it's just there. It's a part of you. That's my take on it, Derran.
Thank you. Michelle, what's your take?
Maybe it's a very negative take, but I don't think that employers are really embracing work-life balance. I think that the expectation of always-on culture, and particularly in IT, is just there and it's prevalent. I, as a manager, would always say to my employees, you got to have work-life balance. And then as a manager, I was working 12 to 18-hour days. And it was because of the expectation of my management above me. But my employees, I kept on saying, hey, you got to have work-life balance. And then my employees came back to me and going, Michelle, you're not balanced, right? And what I find right now is what I've lost is that I lost time with my family, just like Rita. My boys suffered because of me not being there and not being present in the moment. And not being present in the moment meant I didn't do a lot of things with them because I wasn't present after work. I was so exhausted. And now I've taken the last 10 weeks off of work, 10 or 12 weeks off of work, and now I'm completely imbalanced where it's like, I don't even know if I want to go back to work. And so when I go back to work next, it will be setting the expectations. And there's a few people that I know in the industry that just basically say to their employers, I will give you an exceptional 40 hours, nothing more. And I think that we, as the employee, has to set the expectation back to the employer. And then we also have to find an employer that doesn't set crazy expectations. When you get down to incident response, I think it's about managing the expectation of your manager and the manager expectation of the team, and then giving people the appropriate time and breaks to be able to get that mental health back. Because if you do weeks and weeks and weeks of incident response, you're not going to be doing the job well anyway.
I think that's a great point, and I think there's organizations like it's easy to say everything comes back to the organization you're in, but really it comes back to really who do you work for? Who's your manager? Who's your leader? I know one thing that when I came on board the company I'm at now, I made a very purposeful thing is I don't have any notifications on my cell phone. I don't get email. I don't get Teams. And I remember telling one of my sales guys that one day, and he must have wanted to kill me with the face he gave me. And I didn't care. And I'm like, you know, if there's an emergency, something happens, call me on the weekend, I'll sit 12 hours trying to help somebody on incident response. I've done it before. But you know what? I don't need an email to say that Buddy Boy needs this delivered on Monday. I don't need to get that at 7 o'clock at night. So you know what? I don't keep my notifications on. So I think it comes down to who's your leadership.
We'll talk about that later, Darren.
Yes,
think you
I
need to
know.
Keep your notifications on.
I know. Okay, I'm going to call this one father-son.
Well, I'm just going to want to, is everybody aware of the French law relative to that they have to turn email off at 5 p.m. every single night? That's what we need to ask for in North America.
Oh, that would be nice. I'm going to call this the father-son back and forth. And I really love this, but the dynamic we have here, especially the question, because it's all about AI. Has AI started to make things better? Or is AI introducing new pressures? And we'll start with you, Josh.
I mean, I think AI is beautiful as a tool. I don't think it should be used as you're making it do all your work, because then your personal creativity just goes right out the window. But if you're using AI to set schedules, right? If you're asking it for even idea generation, right? You're still able to choose which ideas you want to use for yourself. So I think personally AI has made just work and life a lot easier for me, at least personally. I'm allowed to find information a lot quicker. I can tell it to find reliable information, make sure to fact check it. And overall, I think AI is a very good thing.
Ricky?
I think it's both. It's making our lives easier and harder. Easier with everything Josh said. Take the busy work out of it. Use it for what it needs to be leveraged for. However, it adds another level of pressure to everybody because you're expected to know more. You're expected to know more because you have tools to help you with more. And yeah, that's valid, but that's getting to decide how do you free up your time to focus on the things you need to? And I always look at it, and I mean, I'm in information technology, I'm part of a vendor. Guess what? Every single vendor is at it. AI. Isn't that the new bingo buzzword?
I heard the AI is coming any day now.
It is, it is. But that whole concept is, the way I look at it, AI is not going to replace me. What's going to replace me is the person who leverages AI. Because it's a tool no different than, do you go to the library anymore? Maybe. But do you use it for a research paper? Maybe not. You're using the internet, word processing. I was listening to the radio coming back from the Oilers game last night. Yeah, they lost, I know, but they won in the other one, so that's the main thing. But, the stalemate. I'm totally going on a different tangent there. Sorry, yeah, sorry. But they were talking about keyboard lessons. Does anybody remember keyboard lessons? I'm not talking about like the ding, ding, ding music, but like typing.
This is one of the things I think about a lot, is that in high school, I took typing. You know how efficient that made me when I got into computer science and
That's not a thing anymore, Derran.
I know it isn't, but
Doesn't
that helped me a
exist.
lot.
I know you want it to be there so you can go back and do your, what was that program called? Mavis Typer? That thing?
That was great.
Yes, Mavis Beacon. Doesn't exist. It's not a thing anymore. Because it's just, people naturally do it. They just do, because that's what they are using every single day. So when you went to courses to do that thing, that course is a waste of time now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, this is for everybody on the panel. And I'm going to start with Rita. What's a boundary that you set that felt scary at first, but made your life healthier, and you only have 10 words to say this? Less than 10 words.
Oh boy. I think for me, it was really around having psychological safety, making sure that I'm part of a team, that I can be really open, honest, and engaged with the team members, and that I can really bring my full self to the conversation.
Fair enough. Michelle.
Setting that 40-hour work week and being able to make sure that I am calendaring absolutely everything I'm doing, not just simply the meetings, and being able to represent that back to management. It was difficult to discuss at first because the expectations are much more than 40 hours for a vendor job. But in the end, is that I just basically was able to describe to them that they're going to get much more greater degree of productivity out of me by me focusing on 40 hours, that then allows me to be able to spend the appropriate time with my family and my boys. And there's no argument. They can't give you an argument when you get down to it.
Rick, 10 words.
Well, I remember when Derran, I'm going to have to get him to repeat the question, but before I do that, this is not part of my
Boundaries,
words until
boundaries.
he finishes. So, yeah, I know, but I asked him, the question had to be less than 10 words. Okay, what was the question again?
What's a boundary that you set that felt scary at first, but made your life healthier?
Saying no. Being comfortable saying no.
I was going to bring that up. You stole it.
And I did it in less than 10 words, just saying.
Josh, can you do it in under 10 words?
Staying true to myself and my values.
Love it. Love it. For me, it was saying no to say yes to much more important things. So, question period. Again, we have more resources on the screen. If you want to take a picture, these are books that we have, a number of us on the panel have found that have helped us on some of these topics. Any questions? Go ahead.
How about this, is that my employer kept on telling me that I was more productive on vacation than I was when I was at work, and that I closed more business. The other thing I think that you need to bring
Didn't
up...
you just take a vacation the whole time?
Yeah, I know, I
then?
needed to take a vacation the
I would.
entire time. We don't see this in Canada, but you see it in the United States. Unlimited paid time off. That's intended to change the behaviors of the employees, to reduce the amount of time that we take off.
I see danger, warning signs when you see that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we should talk about the stigma of taking time off. I had a manager that was proud that I ended the year with 120 hours of paid leave that I didn't take. My manager was proud of me for doing that over the course of 18 years. And I lost so many hours. No, they didn't give me the money for that. I just lost it. But the expectation was, don't go on vacation, right? But if we don't go on vacation, we're not recharging, we're not taking the time for ourselves. Or the stigma of using those services from an HR perspective. HR is not your friend. And then you start to talk to HR about the need of those services, and then at that point you get targeted, and you get people putting notes in your file of this person has mental health issues. We need to be able to change those stigmas.
Any other questions before we move on? Oh, one right here I saw first. I think it's a great question. I think it's a great question.
We don't have a great answer.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll give you an answer, is that we're not considered blue collar. We're considered white collar career professionals, and therefore then unions don't apply.
Big enough, though. I mean, in most IT, you're not a big enough entity.
You're not big enough.
To form a union unless you're in an organization that currently has a union. That's the problem where I know we are specialized workers, we are critical to infrastructure, but typically we do so much with so little, right? Which makes it hard to unionize. I was part of organizations that had unions. I wasn't part of it because I was considered a critical service.
I think it also comes down to for us to be, to your point, like almost white collar. It's almost like the way to go about that would be more like a union tied to a certification of some sort, something like that. But then that organization's going to put themselves out in front, and nobody's going to do that.
And I was going to make a very similar comment here, is that in IT, we're not professional. We have no professional designations in IT. We're certified, but there's no such thing as an IT professional designation. We need to be able to elevate IT into a professional designation, just like a CPA.
And that's exactly what I was thinking, because I went to school at NAIT. The program I took is gone. The program that replaced it is now gone. And I was thinking that's where the accreditation came from. You were able to be part of one of those accredited groups when you came out of NAIT, but we don't have that. And now we're getting less of those programs. There was one more question over here. Prashant?
Yeah, great panel and great discussion. In fact, a very interesting topic. So a couple of questions on two different areas. One is, can you share any personal strategies on reclaiming your mental health, whether in terms of cyber mindfulness? I heard this term, in fact, very recently. People do mindfulness meditation to try to make sure that they are present in the moment and not click on phishing emails because they're thinking something else, as an example. But any personal strategies? And also my second question is around, I teach in certain educational institutions here. I see students and people who want to have an entry-level role in cybersecurity, but they can't, and they are struggling mentally. They have the skills, they may have the education, they may not have the experience, but they're not able to cut in, and there could be various reasons. There are not enough jobs or whatever the case may be. How can we help those new to the workforce or trying to enter but struggling mentally because they can't enter the workforce right now?
I think we're gonna pause on the first question because it's gonna get covered in the next section. As far as helping the next generation, I think it's interesting. I have a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old daughter, and I hear a lot about the different generations, how the Gen Z and the this and that, and I never really kept track of a lot of that stuff. The one thing I found interesting about the different generations is that for a long time, millennials have had this bad rap. They get this bad rap, and I'm not trying to say that some points I didn't see it as well, but you know what? The one thing I think that they're really changing for the better, millennials, unlike my generation, and I'm Gen X, is the millennials when, for example, they're like, hey, you got to go back to working in an office. They're like, no. And we're like, we would be, okay, how are we going to make this work? They're like, no, well, you're going to lose your job. Okay, I'll find another job. And employers are having a really hard time figuring out what to do with that. And my generation we're always built to figure out a solution. We're figuring out the next solution for that. I would have never thought of saying no. And I love the fact that millennials are pushing employers. So I almost feel like I'm learning more from the millennials who are doing this, and I'm loving it. I don't know if anybody else has a quick comment, though.
Very, very quick comment is, for the young people in the audience, seek out mentorship.
Yeah, that's great.
For the folks that have been in the industry for a period of time, mentor. And when I have taken the opportunity to mentor a few people out of the UFC program, and the SATE program, and the NATE program, and the programs are disappearing because the kids can't find the jobs. Kids can't find the jobs because the employment methodologies of being able to put your resume in isn't working for that generation, and that we need to be able to connect people with people. And that's one of the things I did with mentoring one of the students. I helped him find his first job. As soon as he has his first job, now he's thinking about where he's going to go next and what he's going to do next. So I challenge all of the folks that have been in the industry for a period of time, find somebody to mentor. We need to be able to mentor. We have to.
Quick, Rita, you want to make a comment?
If I can. So I think, Michelle, to your point, I think there's all kinds of different opportunities for mentorship, and there's all kinds of different associations that are out there, but also finding who you want to be intentional. I've had, I wish I would have taken the opportunity earlier on in my career to find a mentor. I did later on. It was exceptional just from a growth perspective. But I think to your point, Michelle, there's all kinds of different ways to continuously engage. And I don't think it just needs to be with the upcoming generation. I think we can all leverage that and have different perspectives that are brought in to broaden our mindset as well.
Well said. Okay, turning to breaking points and coping mechanisms, burnout and chronic overwork. I know none of us know anything about that. What are some of the human warning signs of burnout that people often brush off as just work life? Ricky?
Oh, my hair fell out. No. So
I thought that's what happened when I joined.
valid. This is all natural. When you're exhausted all the time, right? I mean, that's one of the things that really starts to come out when you have no joy in anything, right? It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's spending time with your family, frolicking around in the field with your Yorkies, whatever it is, you don't get the joy in it. So it's that whole concept where you need to find that place to recharge. So, I mean, that's my take on it anyways.
Michelle?
So I'm divergent, and I have OCPD, which is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And that disorder focuses me towards perfectionism. But also within that disorder, I have my mind just doesn't stop. And when I can't control my mind from the perspective of being able to get that downtime, I know that I'm having mental challenges and I'm reaching that burnout stage. We have to be able to take that time. As soon as we see it, those signs, is then take that break and stop and refocus.
It took me a while. So when my anxiety used to come out would be something difficult. Work would happen. It used to be a really bad manager. My first time having a manager, a director when I was a manager, and I used to, when I was going to bed at night, I'd start thinking about what was happening and how I'd react. When I knew it was a problem was when what I was thinking about and how I'd react became so never going to happen. Like, it's like he pulls out a gun, you know what I mean? It was just over the top imagination that it was so unrealistic that I knew I'd now crossed into a healthy part of my anxiety. So to me, if there's scenarios you run through, as long as they're realistic, but once you start unrealistic, to me, that's a pretty big warning sign for myself. So going to almost what Prashant left, he would have loved this. What routines, hobbies, or practices outside of work have made the biggest difference for your mental health? Rita?
I think for me is, I know this is going to sound cliche, but I'm going to go there anyway, exercise. It's the ability to get out and also get some fresh air. That, on an ongoing basis, the fresh air makes a huge difference. So my husband drags me out with the dog, and we go for a walk. Other things for me that are important, I read quite a bit, and I try to not always be reading business books. I don't always promise that. But gardening and doing other activities. We do spend, going back to the comment about family, we spend a lot of time with our family, and we make sure that the kids are really well connected with their grandparents. That's really important to us. And it builds that sense of community and family in the relationship. So that becomes really critical, how we want to show up and how our kids kind of continue on that tradition. So those are all aspects, and really being present. So I think we've talked a little bit about that. Putting the devices away. Not always are we successful at doing that. We attempt to do that, but the kids are getting better at it. We're not that great ourselves, but just really being intentional. So spending that family time and being engaged is really cherished, and I think that gives us an energy to reconnect in a different way.
So Josh, I'm really curious on your opinion on this, because you have a very different life than us, where you're up late a lot. I know you're gaming sometimes at 4 a.m. So how does this, well, I'm giving you too late?
4 a.m.
2 a.m. then. Okay, so how does, how about you? What do you do to try to unwind, bring it back, especially with a different type of schedule where you do go long on your streaming and gaming?
I mean, I think Rita hit the nail on the head. Really, exercise is super important. I used to be, I think a year ago, I was around 240, 250 pounds, and that's when my mental health was almost at my worst. Like anxiety, overthinking everything. And then I started, getting in shape, going outside even, just getting sunlight. You don't even need to go outside and walk around. You could literally just go outside, sit on a chair, and just take in the sun, because that vitamin C, really helps. It might not look like I take a lot of vitamin C, but yeah, so really just getting outside, getting some exercise, weightlifting, and also another thing could be for energy levels, like supplements like vitamins, creatine. You don't even need to work out to take creatine. It's just a very natural energy booster. So yeah, hanging out with family, going outside, getting that exercise, I think is a super important thing.
So I'm going to pivot this a little bit. So one thing that I've struggled with, and I've had to be very purposeful of, is that I have a hard time being at home and not doing anything. I feel lazy. I feel judged. So I'm always constantly like, hey, it's Saturday, and what am I going to do? I got to get this done. If I'm not doing it, nobody's doing it, etc. So eventually I came up with Sunday is a no pressure, no obligation day. But I'm curious, how can we create a culture where rest and recovery are valued, not seen as lazy? Josh?
Well, let me ask you something. When you do feel like you feel lazy and you don't want to go do something, how do you feel after you go and do it?
I start to get more tired and more exhausted. So, well,
I guess it's a little different for me, because even yesterday, for example, I was like, oh, I don't want to go work out. I just want to lay in bed all day, right? But then I got up, got my workout in, and I had all this energy, and I felt absolutely amazing right after. So I guess it's different for each person. But yeah, personally for me, it's just doing it. Go into autopilot and just get up and do it. Don't overthink it. The more you think about it, the less you want to do it, right? So it's just doing it.
How do we create that culture, though? How do we start to create that culture where rest and recovery are valued, as seen as something that we need all the time? You can't always be on. We need an off sometimes.
Yeah.
So how do we build that culture? Rita, I was also going to ask you as well.
Yeah, I think it really is how people show up on Monday mornings. Because, do they show up exhausted and the conversations are really, just the mood, just lack of energy? And those that come, that have that, hopefully the rest and relaxation, have the energy, can really spice the conversations, can really bring a different element into the whole energy level of whatever it's happening. So I actually try to do that myself. When on Monday mornings, when it just feels heavy and hard, is just bringing that level of enthusiasm and starting to shift the conversation towards, okay, so we don't need to go through a log of all the things you did over the weekend, but what brought you joy? What brought you, energy? What brought you enthusiasm? What are the things that really you can speak to? So that's one part of it. I think the other part of it that's just as critical is incorporating the things and really connecting with people of what they're passionate about. How do you incorporate some of those aspects into some of the work that they're doing? So some of the conversations I've had throughout my career has been, what's your passion? Let's talk about that. And then really understanding how that can be, incorporated into whether it's projects, whether initiatives, that just gives people more of that fuel in the tank, so to speak, and brings that enthusiasm level that's heightened. So I think there's multiple things. I don't think it's just one. I think it's multi-aspect, but I think the energy Monday morning continues to shift and provides visibility of those that have had rest versus those that kind of continued on.
Thank you. I'm going to add a question in here and just, challenge Michelle a little bit because I think this fits perfect for what you've been talking about today, Michelle. And I think I've been in this situation somewhat as well, not quite probably to
My anxiety is
what
increasing.
you've brought up, but no. Once you've been in deep burnout,
Yeah.
is recovery possible without a major reset?
Oh, that's a wicked question. I'm in deep burnout right now.
But you've had your reset, haven't you? Is
and
10 weeks enough?
No,
Great answer.
no. I'm changing my entire life. I'm changing my attitude towards work, changing my attitude towards how many hours I work, and I'm really looking at work from the perspective of it's infinite. The work will always be there. As long as you're employed, the work is always there. What you leave on your desk on Friday is there on Monday. My focus at this particular point in time is that I've kind of broken my life into thirds, and I'm in the last third of my life. And the last third of my life is going to be the best third of my life. And I'm going to take care of myself first and foremost. I'm in the mode right now of loving myself. And I think we all just simply need to love ourselves. 14 years, I had a marriage that just broke up in December. And I lost my femininity completely. I didn't wear any makeup, and here I am wearing makeup. Why? Because it makes me feel good. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And so recovery from the perspective of burnout is possible. Change is possible. We need to embrace change, and in that change is really looking at what we've all been talking about today. It's taking care of yourself. And taking care of yourself isn't necessarily always taking care of your employer. It's being able to understand when you need to step away. And I'm going to step away the next time that I'm in that, oh my God, I've got this big project that's due and I'm stressed out and I know that I'm going to just get upset with somebody. I'm just going to step away. And when I step away, I regroup myself, and then at that point I don't get into problematic situations where I'm yelling at somebody. I think it's just simply a matter of changing perspective, looking at it from the perspective of where we need to, or where I want to go, setting those goals, but not only setting the goals, but setting the dreams. We in society, I think we forget to dream. We need to be able to dream, and those dreams and aspirations cut down on the anxiety. Manage our money better. That's another thing I'm planning on doing. Creating less commitments, spending less, managing the money so that I'm not running out of money. I know a long-winded answer, but...
Oh, I think it was a great answer, and I think the thing, and I went through a burnout at one point as well, and a couple things I love you said is, I personally think it takes time. When you first take that break, I was a bitter Betty. I was upset. It took me a long time to be able to have a really honest conversation and have self-awareness of the situation I had been in. And then it also took and I love what you said, perspective. I had to change my perspective, and I had to change what Rita mentioned earlier, was start to think about what values are important to me, where do I want to work, and it became to the point of looking for the right person to work with, work for. Don't get any ego going, Rick. But it was about finding the right situation. And I'll be very transparent. I don't have any loyalty in my opinion, anymore to companies that I work for, but I have loyalty to people. The relationships I have in companies, both managers, people beside me that have showed me loyalty, I have loyalty back to those people.
I work for the company. I worked for Fortinet for 18 years of my life, and near the end of my tenure of working for them, I was feeling entitled. I was the person that everybody came to because I knew all of the tribal knowledge of Fortinet. I know the products inside and out. I still know all the products inside and out. But with that entitlement came anger and resentment. And then I ended up getting a micromanager. And then HR told me, don't call him a micromanager. And I'm like, he's a micromanager. Because he's going to get upset with you. And then I blew up on him. I blew up on him several times where it was just like, and I can't use the words that I used, but basically I quit on him several times. And then ultimately I made a decision to leave. And with that, I started to realize where I was at. And it's just like, Rick started with being humble. We have to be appreciative of what we have and be humbled by everything. I have a wall in my house. I own a church in Nanton, and I'm humbled by the home that I have. But on the wall, I have everything that humbles me. I'm not very good at musical instruments, but my son is, and I have 6 or 7 different musical instruments on my wall. I have family pictures. I have family past histories, because family is critical to be humbled by. I have things that I can't do, and I have things that I remember. I have like a big sled from being a kid, because in Canada that's associated to us being Canadian. And so I'm humbled by being Canadian. And so I'm replacing anger and resentment and entitlement with being humble and realizing that, you know what, maybe I don't need another job. Maybe I do. I probably do. And with that, I'm going to go and do what you did, is you found the right manager. You found the right organization, and you found the right balance, and you set the right tone and direction right from the get-go.
Yeah, and you know what? That wasn't easy to do for myself, because it felt like going out on a limb and saying, I don't do notifications, and I'm saying more, saying no to a lot more, but it was a breath of fresh air, and it definitely made a big change for my life. Okay, we've got question period here. We're going to speed up a little bit. Again, some more resources for you. Any questions on the burnout? Prashant, and you missed the answer to your last question when you went outside.
Sorry about that.
It's all good, Prashant.
My question is more around your idea of macro management versus micromanagement of your employees. Have you had ever that of an experience? Usually we all frown upon micromanaging your employees to the extent that they feel burned out. But what are your takeaways on how I can be a good leader in delegating work but still not be called a micromanager and help my team work as a team, basically?
Since I brought up micromanagement, I'll answer your question, Prashant. I'm not sure exactly how to answer it. The key to me is employee autonomy. Having the employee know that they can make decisions on their own and not be questioned on those decisions. Then there's also the assignment of work that a manager needs to be able to do. And for me, I think it comes back and forth from the perspective of dialogue across the entire team. I was a manager for 9 years at Fortinet, and I started to believe in consensus-based management decisions. And when I was hiring new employees, I would always create a team underneath me to be able to make a decision. Will this employee fit on the team? Will they give us the right skills? Will they give us the thing? Because in the end, this is that as a manager, if I was the only one making the decisions to hire those employees, it would be always on me. Whereas I could have the team make that decision, and if that person didn't work out, it was on us. And so for me, I think it's more along the lines of that team, consensus-based discussion, decision-making.
Rita?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple things. So the whole notion around building high-performing teams is really around trust. And so building that trust out of the gate, what does that look like? How does it show up? And it was interesting because at one point, I did a bit of an exercise with a team. And in the virtual room, because we were hybrid, I said, I'd like to go around the room and everyone to define what team means, what trust means to each team member. And it was a really interesting exercise because what that really demonstrated is everybody has a different understanding what trust is, which that shows up, what it means to them. But if you don't have the trust in your team as an onset, you're not going to be able to elevate that in multiple different capacities to be able to really have a high-performing team. And I think the Brene Brown's comment, I'll try not to butcher it, I can't promise I won't, but when she talks about that you talk to people, you don't talk about people. So, things like you shut down as a leader really quickly, any of the gossip, anything that if you can't say that to the person to their face, you shouldn't be talking about them
Great
at all.
comment. Rick?
Oh, sorry. I'd just like to add one thing that, because it made me think about it. This micromanager that I had at Fortinet didn't build trust with me out of the gate. And Pride Month came along, and he decided to bring up pride in an employee meeting where we had 15 people on. And he pinpointed, we should be talking about pride and Michelle and everything like that. And it's just like, dude, you never even had a conversation with me on how I feel about pride, because pride parades, as far as I'm concerned, are ridiculous. And so when he brought that up, he just continued to break trust with me.
Rick, I'm curious on your opinion as well, since simply because I know the team you built and the culture, but how have you approached the whole macro, micro management? And I loved what Rita mentioned as well, is about, it's something that I learned a long time ago, which I think you've been really good at, is that I've had managers that will talk about other people. I always think if they're going to talk about another employee, eventually they're going to talk about me. So I'm curious your perspective on both points.
It's management. Everybody's got to deal with it when they go into a people manager type role, responsibilities. And it really boils down into what Rita said with the strengths, but it's also understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are. And each individual person needs to be managed in a different fashion, if that makes sense. I don't want to call it servant leadership because I don't believe that anybody is a servant to anybody, but it is knowing what they need to be beneficial in their role. If you're trying to focus on their weakness, you're probably focusing on the wrong thing, because there's a reason it's their weakness. And if it's just because you believe it's their weakness, but it doesn't really influence their job, keep focusing on those strengths. That's my whole philosophy on everything. I don't care what the weakness is. Right, even though you wear a pink shirt, I think it looks great on you. Your choice of clothes doesn't impact me. But I know that's not Derran's strength, but I know what his strengths are, right? And this
is what happened.
A great joke.
You know what? This is honestly one of the biggest things that I enjoy about my job, is that me and Rick have this constant banter back and forth. And I'll be honest, I laugh my ass off. And when you're at work and you're laughing a lot, that's always a good thing.
Can I just add one more thing about management?
It's got to be within 5 seconds.
It's going to be 2 seconds. I've told Rick multiple times that I want him to be my manager going forward because of the nature between these two, and it's awesome. But I'm not a system engineer, so I can't do it. But from a management perspective, I just want to say this: for the people who are managers in the room, it's okay to fail as a manager. I failed as a manager, and then I analyzed the things that I was doing. And the one thing that I think I needed to do was go to my manager and say, hey, look, I'm failing, and I'm trying multiple different ways of being able to manage the team, and it's not working. If I had done that, I might still be in management, but I'm not.
So we're going to pivot.
Two seconds, I promise, Derran.
Go ahead.
So in terms of tools, something that I had found, Patrick Lencioni recently came out, well, I don't know, it's a year and a half ago or whatever, with a book. It's called 6 Types of Working Genius. It's really very good. What it does is they actually have an online quick survey that you do, and you do that with your team. And it outlines what they're passionate about, what are the things that they like to do and what are the things that they don't like to do. Doesn't mean that they're not good at or good at, but it gives you a really good map for you to be able to leverage with your team to be able to understand how do you actually position their strengths and where do you have your weaknesses. And it's only specific to work. So it's a strength specific to work, but I think that I know that it's been advantageous to numerous people. I've used it, but numerous others have used it as well.
I think that's a great point. Is back in the day, my whole office at one of my where I worked, we all did a personality workshop, and we were inviting our spouses and everything. It was really funny is that my wife went and sat in the all emotion section, and one of my coworkers sat there with her. And every day I had a desk facing this individual, and he'd come in, he was the most happiest guy. And the one day he came in, you could just tell something was wrong, and I got up, I said, "Do you need a hug?" And he came running over for a hug. And you know what? I would not have known that or even thought about that because I didn't understand his personality type. So I do find those type of...
Don't worry about that with me. Never need a hug.
I know you do the running over, I know. Okay, segment 4, connection, culture, and change. Let's focus on the remote or hybrid life. What helps you build genuine connection with others? Rita, why don't we start with you?
Sure. That's been easy since COVID, right? I think the aspects are really around understanding. First of all, goes back to what we talked about earlier, is understanding the people. How do people want to be engaged? Some people are not comfortable engaging in a group. Some don't want that. Others are comfortable over time as you build trust. So when you're looking out and saying, well, we're just going to do team dynamics or we're going to do, I don't know, icebreakers or whatever it is, not everybody's comfortable with it. So being really thoughtful about the individuals, I think, is important. And I think the other thing is, quite frankly, is care, is making sure that you're building that culture of care of what do you need? How can I show up for you? And then what do you need from me? I say that to the kids to get that ingrained into their mind is shifting really around what's your ask, because the more clear you are about what the ask is, the easier it is for people to engage and connect. So if you know that they need to connect in a certain way, being able to do that. So I think there's individual cultures. I think there's group cultures. Being available is a challenge. I mean, it's great for everybody to be able to say, oh yeah, I'm always available. We're not always available. Let's just be frank, right? There's certain situations and circumstances that doesn't happen. But knowing that you're genuinely there and you care, I think it goes a really long way. And then how do you want to engage with people individually and being thoughtful starts to shift that culture.
Thank you. Josh, what about yourself? Because you have your eSport followers, you have people who watch you. You counsel people and help them on this. So what's your perspective?
I mean, honestly, just for building connections with other people, it's just being there, right? Being present, and just sending that occasional check-in message. Just be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Right? Could be once a week, could be once a month, right? And that means more than anything, right? Especially for me, right? If I have any friends or individuals that just message me, it could be every 2 months, 3 months. I know that person's there for me, and if I needed to go to them to talk about something, right? Somebody that I can trust. The biggest thing is just being there and just, if somebody needs help, right, be there to help them out, especially if you want to build that deep connection.
Yeah, well, I like the one, I have a lot of friends that I don't see all the time. I didn't grow up in Alberta. My best friends don't live here. But getting an email or a text from somebody that is in your life or matters, or sending that to somebody, I think does make a big difference. So I totally do agree with you. Rick, what's one small behavior that kills trust or safety, even if it's unintentional? And we're going to try to be brief with our answers.
I'm always brief. I'm a man of little words. Honestly, stick to...
Is that because you only know a few?
It's true, yeah. I'm simple, and I'm okay with that. It's not one of my strengths by any means, but I'm okay. So to keep it simple, it's sticking to your word. Even if it says you're going to email somebody or you're going to remember something, remember it, because they won't forget it. It may be a small thing to you, but maybe that was a massive thing to them.
Michelle, yourself as well, briefly.
I think I said don't micromanage. Right? What was the question?
That's what a moderator does. Okay, what's one small behavior that kills trust or safety, even if unintentional?
Yeah, micromanagement kills trust. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I'll just leave it at that so that you can gain some time back.
Thank you. Rita, have you ever experienced toxic positivity when people dismiss real struggles with empty encouragement?
Yeah, I think that there's a tendency to do that based on what's happening, right? And either we've experienced it or have been part of that. And it is unfortunate because it is quite challenging to kind of, from a navigation perspective, right? When you think about, well, yes, it's not taken seriously. It's not, someone doesn't show up in a manner that really is where you're at. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, is meeting people where they're at. You know, what does that actually look like? What do you need? What is that, being honest and being genuine about it rather than just glazing over it?
Fair enough. I also think if you're not willing to have a conversation, or you don't want to have a conversation about something potentially negative, you're invalidating somebody's feelings, right? If you only want to talk about something, you're basically saying, oh, your feelings aren't valid.
Well, and Derran, some people they struggle with difficult conversations, and we see that over and over again. So that becomes really, really a critical component, is for people being able to have those crucial conversations.
Thank you. Rick, have you had toxic positivity? You've experienced that?
Never.
No? I don't know. This is actually, we've talked about, I've talked about sometimes the toxic positivity I used to see in where I used to work. I haven't seen a lot where we work, but I was curious if you've seen that.
I mean, it happens, and sometimes they don't mean it to happen, but it comes from a good place. But the overall picture of things, yes, I agree, it is a challenge, but I haven't dealt with it myself personally.
Okay, fair enough. This is the end of section 4. We have some other resources here for you as well. Any questions on this section? Prashant, your first hand, you were the only hand there I saw. I thought I saw somebody over there, but they're taking a
Such
picture.
an interesting panel. I can't stop asking questions.
Keep asking, my friend.
So one topic more on the culture side, more like, let's put it that way, more from people coming from different cultural settings. Let's say I'm an Indian. People can come from different cultures. So as a manager or as a leader, what would be some of your strategies to try to sympathize with them or know and understand and create that trust relationship? Because something which is normal in one culture may not be normal in another culture. And, you got to be, Michelle made a point, like, pride, but she doesn't believe in that. And people may not have invested time to understand where she came from. So I'm just thinking out, like, these cultures, because this is a workforce where every people have different kind of cultures. So how would you deal with that?
I think it's a great question. And Rita, why don't you take that? You've managed many teams.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I think it really comes down to the mindset, right? So it's building the individual relationships with each person, understanding their perspectives, and then incorporating. I don't think you want to think about your team as a team, but they're also individuals. So we used to joke around, because in certain teams it would be like, we have pretty much international presence from all over the world, which was a good thing, because you really want to build that dynamic where different perspectives, different experiences, different cultures actually all contribute to a better outcome of the team. So I think it's that initial engagement first, and then bringing that into the conversation, into the team as well, so others know how do you want to be treated? How do you engage? What's impactful for you? So it contributes to that whole trust that we talked about earlier.
Rick?
Curiosity. Ask the questions. That's how I deal with it with myself, because just because somebody may even seem like they're from a different culture, they may not actually have a different culture in some cases too. So looks can be deceiving at times too. So I always just be curious. Even I like to send out birthday wishes as an example to every employee, but I actually check with every employee first to make sure that's even okay, because it may be something they don't want their birthday known or something like that. So then I don't send out those invites.
I'd love to add. I personally embrace worldwide cultures. I've intentionally worked for a Taiwanese company, an American company, a Chinese company, an Israeli company, and an Indian company in my career. And I want to learn. I want to learn as much as possible from all of these other cultures, because I believe we're put on this earth to be able to understand. And so when you start to look at the different cultures, it's just have an appreciation for them and make sure that people know. When you asked the question, you notice that I got all excited is because of the fact that it's like, I just love the cultural differences. Because if we were all the same, it would be really boring. And so if we can, as managers, if we could just simply embrace that and then show the team that we embrace that. And from that, then at that point, the team may like that, they may not like that. It all depends upon each individual.
Thank you. Okay, last section here. I'm going to ask this to Josh. When the future feels shaky, how do you stay grounded as a person, not just as a professional?
I mean, honestly, it comes down to if the future starts feeling shaky, is that honestly something that you really want to keep doing? And something I always lived with, because I've kind of transitioned through a few things, right? I first wanted to get into IT, then I switched to computer science, and then I switched to competitive esports gaming. Now I do content creation, coaching, all that fun stuff. So each time has felt shaky, but I've always stayed true to what I want to do, my dream, and yeah, it's basically staying true to yourself. And then there's times where maybe it is still your dream, that job is feeling shaky, so maybe it's having that conversation with maybe your higher ups, right? Or having that conversation with someone you trust, your family, because then you can get maybe a little different perspective on it because they have a different view. Or maybe you just got to stick it through for a little bit, see if it starts to regain, and if not, then yeah, you got to maybe look at other routes, or yeah.
When the future feels shaky, how do you feel grounded as a person, not just as a professional? So what do you do to ground yourself when things are getting hairy, when things are getting a little out of control, and maybe your anxiety is getting a little bit much?
I look deep inside and go, is this something I can even control? Huh? Right? Is this something that matters? Can I control it? If I can, will I do if I don't like where it's going? But no matter what, everything I do in my life is under my control. I get to make the decision.
Do you have a happy spot?
It's usually with Yorkies and frolicking in a field.
Is
that what you meant?
I bring it up because I do know that it seems over the last year you've transitioned to having a cottage. And when you come out, you go out there and you come back, you're much more relaxed. It seems like that's a happy spot for you where you totally get away from the pressures of the job, maybe even of the city, and it seems to definitely relax you. I actually envy you for that.
I'll agree with you.
Okay. Michelle, how about yourself? When times are shaky and you want to feel grounded, and this is really topical for you right now, right?
Well, it's pretty simple for me, is that grounded to me is to be close to the earth. And so I go camping, I go out fishing, I go out 4x4ing. I eliminate whatever that stressor is and go towards my happy place that we just talked about with Rick.
Great answer. Last question. Rita, what overlooked resources, friends, therapy, community groups, faith, hobbies have helped you through tough transitions?
So I've recently gone through one myself, and it was really around having the space to really know what was important. So I'm going to go back to the values because, like I said, I spent a significant amount of time really digging into that. It was having the space. Like, it was mentally, we're so busy. There's so much going on all the time, and having the ability to almost sit back, stand back, whatever, walk back, whatever it is, and really think about what is the future? What's that next chapter? Where I want to be? What does that look like? And envisioning that, and actually thinking about what that looks like. So I think for me, in a lot of cases, it's having, I'm going to go back to the family portion, but it's having the headspace, like just having the ability to breathe and to think things through really changed my perspective, and really being focused on what is it that I want to do in the future and where do I see myself.
Hey, all great points. I think to me, for myself, when I was through a difficult transition and burnt out, time, it takes a while to come and wind down. I used to laugh, like my parents used to say, why don't you come visit us on the island? And I'd be like, because it's 5 or 6 days. And by time 4 days go and I just start to de-stress, I'm already having to ramp back up. There's no point. That doesn't give me a break, a mental break.
Yeah, and for me, it was about 5 months where I took the time to really decompress, think about what that future needed to look like, and really be intentional of what the next chapter comprised of. And I'm so glad I did that. I can't even tell you how much of a difference it has made. And the kids, my kids and my husband and the rest of my family have seen how much happier I am and how much more engaged I am and how much present I am.
Good for you. Good. That's the end of the last question. So we have 5 minutes left. Any questions about anything we covered today? Anything we can help you with? Not that we have all the answers by any means. Anybody? Prashant, are you going to ask your... Oh, no. We got a question? Okay.
Sorry, Prashant. My question is specifically for Josh. I've got an 11-year-old son who's into gaming. So I am constantly worried about his mental health online, and also the kind of friendships and relationships that he makes. So whilst you were talking, I was just imagining him playing with you online, because I always tell him that don't play with people who are not your age. But so I don't know if that's the right advice. So what I'm kind of getting at is, what would be your advice to parents of younger kids who are gaming online and doing content creation? Because a lot of young kids are also on TikTok.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because a lot of kids are dealing with that, even myself. He can attest to it. I dealt with that for many years, where, my parents didn't really see it as a career, an option, anything like that. But I totally understand their point of view, right? Because especially from their generation, that wasn't a thing, right? It was just, gaming was a hobby. You couldn't make it a career. You couldn't make money from it. And when it comes to like speaking with friends or people you meet online, it's genuine connections. Like you're talking with them, right, about anything, right? You're having a fun time. It's like you're hanging out with somebody in real life. I've met so many of my friends that I've met online, and I met them in person, and it felt totally the same. Like it didn't feel weird, didn't feel awkward. We still had that beautiful connection with each other, share those laughs. And honestly, a lot of those people helped me get through those tough times, being able to, speak with them about stuff, even maybe they were going through similar things. And I think personally for parents, it's trying to understand what your child wants to do, like what they're going through. If they genuinely want to do content creation, maybe it's like talk with them, try and generate ideas with them. Maybe, or have you been posting online, right? You ask them that stuff. Maybe, what do you need to start posting online? And I think it's just genuinely just talking with them, understanding it, and if it's truly their dreams and goals, no matter what, they'll keep fighting for it. Whether you take their stuff away, like for example, my dad here, he would take away my computer all the time. So what I did is I hid parts around my room so that I could build it and still play at night. Right? So that's helped me build like a lot of resiliency, and I've honestly learned so much through it. And yeah, this is my first time talking at one of these mental health. I've talked about this on stream before, but it's different talking to it with eyes looking at you. So sorry if you've seen a little bit of my anxiety, but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Just trying to understand and
Josh, what I took out of your conversation today is that you've been on a journey, and you're still on a journey. I mean, you've changed what you've been doing 3 or 4 times because you're on that journey, and each time one thing brings you to another. So to me, when I look at kids and I look at my own daughters, I look at they're going to try this, they're going to try that. It's going to help them along their journey. So try to be as open. I would have been like Rick. You know, there's times I would love to smash my kids' cell phones and get rid of them because of the amount of online. But it's a journey, right? They're learning from it.
And it's better than going out to and doing like all this reckless stuff. Because there was a time where I was hanging out with the wrong group of people before I started taking gaming seriously. If I would have went down that path instead of the path I went down, my life could be totally different. I could be, I could be doing illegal things. Who knows? I could be a criminal. No, but right? It's like if you're at least like your son and stuff is safe. And they're enjoying themselves and they are learning. They are learning a lot.
The one thing I'd like to add too is that I have a son on a similar journey to yours. He's 22 years old and he is working to monetize streaming and gaming and what he's doing. And I made a decision several years ago to support him through that journey and then also try to have empathy and understanding because he was using Discord for communication with everybody. And in the end, this is how this generation is socializing. They need that socialization.
I just want to, we're getting the hook here, so I just want to make sure I just finish this up. Put up some of the resources. If you are suffering from any, if you need any mental health help at all, there is lots of resources in Edmonton, in Alberta. And I also want you to know, before you go, you are not alone. It's okay to be not okay. You are not broken, you are human. You deserve rest, you deserve support. There's strength in asking for help. You're not the only one feeling this way, really. You're a part of a community that gets it. That's what the IT industry is, right? We are a big community. It's not weakness, it's wisdom to speak up. You are seen, you are valued, you belong here. We're a group. Everybody at BSides we're all in the IT industry. You can come and talk to any of us about some of your challenges. Maybe we have advice, maybe we don't, but that's the beauty of having a community that we all belong to. I hope you found value in this. We really appreciate you guys coming out today. Thank you for the question. Prashant, you're obviously our favorite because you asked non-stop questions. We loved it.